Dos profesores
Two teachers meet at the door of a hotel. And each one of them has the other person's wife with him. It's a bit of a difficult situation, as you can probably imagine, a bit tricky. So one of the teachers says, okay, we're teachers. We're used to solving problems and giving advice. I think there's a solution to this, a clear, direct and simple solution to this. You return my wife to me. I'll give you your wife back, and we'll just pretend that nothing's happened. The other teacher, who's also an educator, he gives advice, and he says, yeah, I fully agree with you. This is a clear, direct and simple solution, but there's a problem. You were leaving the hotel, and we were going into the hotel. Asshole. If you give an unsolicited piece of advice, you're actually just criticizing. We're always giving advice about what should be working, but sometimes we don't apply our own piece of advice. And giving careers guidance or giving guidance isn't giving solutions, supposed solutions, or giving unsolicited pieces of advice. Let's look. Anyway, you know that what coaching is. Coaching is careers guidance with a bit of glamour. So I'm going to call it reorienting. Reorienting, I prefer this word. So let's talk about guidance or in 6 steps. Firstly, we've got guidance for equality. First, we've got guidance for action. Thirdly, we've got careers guidance for employability. We want to improve. Fourthly, we've got motivation for talent. Motivation for talent. How can we motivate people to want to work? It's like what Albert says. How can you be doing a job that doesn't motivate you? Well, there are jobs that don't motivate. It's very difficult to find motivation. And fifthly, we need guidance or career guidance for achieve. What can we do as experts, as specialists in careers guidance? And finally, what characteristics do consultants need or careers guidance professionals? What sort of skills do they need? Let's start with the first of these. Let's talk about equality. Sorry, I got a bit mixed up with slides here. Equality. Many people, many students, many parents, many teachers who want to do things actually can't. It's all very well saying, oh yes, you can do things if you really want to, but actually, in reality, it's not like that. And you see that every day in the classroom. We need to believe that, and you know that. One thing is wanting to do something, the other thing is being able to do something. This is Bert and Ernie. Bert and Ernie, in Spanish they're called Epi and Blas. You can see that they've been well guided, they're happy. You can see from their face they've got an organized life. What would happen to Bert and Ernie if they hadn't been given the right kind of guidance and advice? They'd have a very difficult professional life. Look at what Bert and Ernie would look like if they didn't receive the appropriate support. This is what happens when you get cutbacks in the world of education, for example. In the US, which is always a model that we should be following for many reasons, or at least a model to keep our eye on, a child from a poor family has 45% of possibilities of being a poor adult. These are figures, and we need to concentrate on figures. And I'll talk about how important figures are later on and how important it is to work towards equality. 39% of people who are unemployed in Spain don't have secondary education, haven't finished secondary education, compulsory secondary education. 39% are unemployed. We can think a lot about this, but that's what the figures tell us. But if you've got higher education, then the possibility of being unemployed is just 13.8%. Sorry, I'm getting a little mixed up with my slides here. Let's have a look at something else, some more figures. Those people that have only just reached secondary education, 30% of those people are what are called NEETs. They're not studying and they're not working. But it's only half that amount, those people that have actually got more than a secondary education. So what happens with the world of 2.0 with new technology? Firstly, we have to admit that there's a 2.0 divide, because network in general and online actually gives more possibility to those that had more possibilities in the past. This is a problem that we're facing, because that we're realizing that we're giving more resources to those that already have the skills to make use of the resources. And what's more, we need to think of this, because visibility is bad for bad people. Visibility takes opportunities away from those who already have very few opportunities. If you open a Twitter account, or if you set up a blog, so it's better to do things with a bit of help. This reminds me of my grandpa when he used to take me to play football. I wasn't the goalkeeper, but he helped me out, not with the umbrella exactly.
Okay, guidance now for action. I'm going to speak a bit quickly because I think that we are running out of time. So, guidance for action. A girl in my web site, so attitude, and that is, I was writing it like that, as you can see on the top, but that is a word that I have invented, yes, because that is my attitude towards doing for action. Elizabeth Holmes was the first woman, to make $100 million. She has created different technology societies, and her experience is very interesting. She's a great professional, because before obtaining financing for her huge project, she dropped university when she was 19 years old. She had 3,000 euros, but before she obtained all that financing, she did 200 different things. 200 things, which were 200 introductions or presentations of her business. She was presenting and talking about that. If you want to obtain a couple, and if you have already been rejected by 5 women, how do you feel? Some of you show that you know what I'm talking about, right? I can see that in your eyes. Now let me identify what happens if you have been rejected by 190. You are looking at your shoes, right? So once somebody tries 5 times and he fails 7 times and he fails, that is part of our competences. Now we talk about resilience, but I prefer to talk about tenacity. So when we are talking about the attitude, the most important thing is not what you think and you say, I have been rejected. No, your life is what you do and not what you think. This man has 600,000 what fans in YouTube, right? That's what you are thinking. Let me tell you why he has 600,000 followers. You want to keep on watching, right? Well, then go to YouTube. He has 2 things, this guy. I like to talk about specific skills, and there are 2 important things. First of all, because he has many skills, many competences linked to the showbiz. He's a good communicator, he's an actor, but also is his attitude. He followed his girlfriend to Canada, to university, but once there he had no work permission, no residence permission, and he couldn't leave his apartment. He was afraid to be arrested. So in Canada, a long time ago, he discovered how YouTube was being used by Americans and Canadians, by people in North America, and he said, that's what I want to do. But when he came back to Spain, what he wanted to do was very well, but he had to start working at a petrol station at night for quite a long time. So he has those two characteristics. You need to have skills linked to your activity, but then you need to work hard at anything. And that sentence, start walking, involves your attitude. A report in the year 2012, I was talking to Jorge, who loves data. It is essential to share data. People who persevere obtain results in all the different regions in Spain. That's how it goes. It is true that surveys measuring this, we can put that into question, but it gives us an idea. Let's measure the effort our kids are doing. This is something key because it is a link with that skill that I have been talking about, which is our attitude. More and more, there are more and more complaints. That is why I was talking about the US. We need to refer to what is happening there. And emotions are a problem. Emotions and the attention we're paying to emotions, that is a big problem. We need to be paying much more attention to behaviors and not to emotions. Emotions are the consequence of what we do. When we talk about positive thinking, when they talk about positive psychology, I say, well, is there a negative psychology? We use these terms like that, but experience says, and we know very well about that, we know very well is that we have been able to work with many different people and we know what is good or not for certain people. And those who do things end up being successful. I know many unemployed people who are optimistic and many people who moan a lot and they are working. So it is true that feelings and emotions are all right. We need to pay attention to them, but they are not the essential thing. When I am talking to professionals, I always say, stop wondering about how you feel and start doing something. Organize your life and you will improve things. We need to improve our daily experience, our daily life. That is what I learned from my mother. We didn't have a father. I have 3 brothers and sisters. I was born in Cordoba in a humble neighborhood. And my mom used to wake up in the morning and she always had so many things to do. And when she was very happy, what did she do? Everything. All the household chores. She woke up, she was very happy, she started working. And do you know what she used to do when she woke up being sad and feeling sad? Exactly the same thing. Work. That is why now that we are talking about this, microcredits are given to women in developing countries and not to men, because women are the symbol of responsibility and that attitude. We men are making progress, but we still have a long way to go. So which is the secret for success? When we are talking about the attitude, at the end of the day, we're talking about 2 things. Those of you who are sitting next to somebody, please put your right hand on the other person's shoulder. On the shoulder, hand on the shoulder, right on the shoulder. Well, if you are attracted by someone, maybe you can do something else if you want. No, remain, don't drop your arm, leave it there on the shoulder. There are 2 men there, and I think that they don't feel very comfortable. So what is the secret for success? The secret is to be surrounded by people who are going to be saying the same thing as you are going to say to the people sitting next to you. You can count on me and believe in yourself, but you have to be convinced. Come on. Say that. Perfect. Thank you very much. You were great. I think you needed some contact and you needed to talk to each other. We are forging friendships here. I also know that some of you were saying, gee, why did I have to sit here? This was the wrong place. Well, so the first secret for success is to be surrounded by good people, by the right people. And that is a very difficult decision to make, mainly if we don't have long-lasting relationships. And the second element for success is, please, raise your arms, do as I'm doing, please. And now let's do an experiment, an experience, a psychological experience. And now let's go and see who is the winner. Don't cheat. I'm going to ask you to Click your fingers 50 times. Click your fingers 50 times. Great. 50 times, click your fingers as fast as you can. Then once you are done, raise your arms and say, done. Well, and if many of you have already said done, then it's not necessary to say anything. But as soon as you do it, you go like that. I'm going to be doing that with you 50 times, not 25 with one hand and the other, no. Ready, steady, go.
Soy como niño.
You're just like kids. You said, okay, even if 300 before me raised their hands, I also want to do it. But women tend to be faster because you put cream on your hands. Whenever I use a public transportation, yesterday I was in the airport and I could see all women putting cream on their hands and arms all the time. That girl with wearing a white shirt, what's her name? Sorry? Pili is your name. Congratulations, Pili. But yes, I was cheating. This is the labor market, and labor market says, quickly, go there fast. Quickly, here, because, you know, it's easier. But imagine we had other competitors. What would happen? You would be looking at your colleagues. What are they doing? You would be obsessed. And if I say that you need to click it like this or like that at a certain pace, and if we make things more complex, then the secret for success is to identify our own rhythm, to dedicate as much time as we need, and never compare ourselves to others. This task, Pili, you are the winner. Okay, Pili, so were you making a mental effort or a physical effort? Pili, are you there? Are you still with us? Both of them, but if you had to choose, mental effort. Most of the skills related to success are linked to organization and not to effort. It is not directly linked to making an effort. We need to planify things well. That is essential. It is true that when we talk about change, remember, when I have made 5 phone calls and I haven't dated someone or obtained a job, who is the winner? The one who is there, who makes the 5th phone call or the 6th one. So that is why we need tenacity. We will be talking about resilience later on, but tenacity is essential. We're talking about professional skills, but this is something that takes place all over the place. We need to persevere. Tenacity is essential. Now, employability now. Here we're talking about continuous improvement. Jorge was speaking about that too. In this society, we keep on learning all the time because lifelong learning, it looks like a curse. Lifelong learning, what a curse. Oh, I hate that. I thought I had already finished. How can we translate all this? I don't know. I'm thinking about the translators, he's saying. Because I see that you are laughing, but I don't know if it is being translated. Maybe they said, fuck. Well, so guidance for employability, reinventing the way we are talking about developing skills. If you say to someone, you know, that is overwhelming. But if you say that you can learn those skills and improve them, that is easier. Because reinventing oneself doesn't just imply following different courses. It implies changing our lifestyle, being specialized. And that is what those who have reinvented themselves say. So right now in Spain, secondary compulsory education is the maximum level of studies for 43.4% of Spanish people who are at working age. A very important figure. And this is very recent. 1 out of 4 contracts are going to last only for 1 week. 1 week, that is the length of the contract. And the less training we have, the more difficult the situation will be. 9% of people have been doing vocational training, middle vocational training, and if we take into account OECD figures, as you can see, we are only at 9%. And I love to talk about a young girl such as this one. She's going to follow a course for unemployed people, and then he goes into VET, and now she has created chocolatissimo.com, and she's an example to follow. I love this girl. So this is her evolution. I know that you are all hungry, but that it's not enough. Training is not enough, because among those who have done this intermediate VET compared to those who have done baccalaureate, the proportion of young people who are neither working nor studying, the proportion is the same. And what is the conclusion? And somebody said to me, well, the conclusion is that we need to become specialized. VET is not enough. An intermediate VET, we need to develop and improve our skills. I'm not saying that intermediate VET is not important, but we need more. And figures are there. That is why we need to talk about data. Angelina Jolie, before and after VET. I think it's clear. When I saw these pictures, I said, well, I need to go and do VET. And this is very funny, because this is a sentence we all know about. We don't know about jobs in the future, but Jacques Delors in 1995 already said the same thing. That is a picture, which was took a long time ago when he was a young man. It is true, we don't know about the jobs of the future. That is why we need to be focusing on skills, competences. Many people come to me because when I used to be working at the work department or employment department, there were 400,000 job seekers trying to work, to be office workers. Because when you are unemployed and you have only done primary education, you decide to be an office worker. You were even invited. They said, well, why not? Why don't you become an office worker, an independent office worker? And then when someone says to me, I am an office worker, I say, great, let's imagine we all are office workers. Let me tell you about an office worker who was working at Medianet Software. He was, in the middle management. And the thing is that we wanted an office worker, and people said, here I am, I'm an office worker. And I said, leave your hand there, keep it raised. Let me tell you about the requirements, and let's see what happens. Number 1, you need to speak fluent English. And then suddenly hands started dropping, and that was it. We had no more candidates out of 200. Why? Because we need those skills. I always say, are you an office worker? And I say, me too, I'm an office worker too. I use my computer, I have office, I can file documents, I can use the telephone. We all are office workers in a society such as ours, in the society of knowledge. We need experts there, but we need to be fluent in English, and we need other skills. Employability is not in the profession, but in the professional. What I am asked, which are the jobs of the future? I say, it's up to you. It is up to you to choose it. So, my friends, let's not learn more jobs. Let's just end up being professionals. This is a mistake we were making, people at my age. Even if I look young, I know I look very young. Why are you laughing? I think you laughed too much. I mean, I'm trying to be funny, but not as much as that. So guidance for the development of talent and for the development of our interests. Yes, we need to find our motivation, but what do most people say to me? And it is true. They say, I don't know what I like, I don't know what I enjoy. And the same thing happens to some of us. Very often we go to school and we find no motivation. Why? Because it is not easy to identify that motivation. If you go to internet to Google motivation, it's a term that we all tend to learn about. But what can I do if I'm not interested at what I do? What a problem. And many students they come to me, well, you can already see that they are not interested at what they are doing. So, Spanish people, we finish university and we're very loyal there because it is true that there are only 24% of dropouts. You start your career and you hate it, but you say, well, once I'm here, I have to go till the end, until I finish my studies. Yes, we are laughing. We are laughing because your mom told you, finish your career, finish your university studies, and then we'll see what happens. What if it was a strategy? No, finish, and then we'll see what we can do with it. In the US, 54% of students who start their university studies, they drop out, they don't finish. They switch to something else. And I insist, let's look at the US, at what they are doing, and that is already starting to happen here. What happens with decisions? The problem is not to fail or to make the wrong decision. We have to learn from mistakes, but maybe not. There are people who get married more than once. Let's imagine I have invested 1 million euros, well, that is too much, 10,000 euros in my company, in my business, 10,000 euros, and my colleagues, my friends say, that business is not very clear. Then what is the probability for me to invest 20,000 more? Because I say, oh, yes, we are going to succeed. It is true. We are not doing well. I have invested 10,000 and I say, I need to invest 10,000 more. Are there many probabilities for me to do that? Yes, there are many, many probabilities. Even if we are talking about this sunk cost effect, we have been investing time, money. Once you have already invested all that, you are willing to continue. But if I asked you, if you had to start all over again, would you make that investment? And then what would you reply? In this experience, at least, they say, no, I wouldn't invest that money. So I have invested 10,000 and I would invest 10,000 more. So this is very curious, right? We are not making the right decision. So what is the problem? The problem is that we are not making decisions according to the situation. So let's make good decisions as if it was the first time. I don't want to break up relationships or couples, of course not. But let's keep it in mind. So when we are talking about developing talent, the idea is to work wherever we can, at whatever we can, but of course you need to keep on searching to try and identify what you love, something that interests you. It is true that there have been many people working at something, making an effort. Yes, sometimes we have to make an effort and accept that life is hard. Sometimes we don't like our children, we don't like our wife or our husband. I don't know, it is true that sometimes that happens. Difficult question number 2. What do I do if I don't know what I want to do? It is true that I have no alternative. Sometimes that is the biggest problem. Well, try and identify models, professionals, people who are a role model for you. And this is the advantage. If you don't take advantage of all this, you can be a professor. If you want to get better, then take a look around you and look at those who are a role model for you. Sometimes people are doing things and they are not being very well paid, but they feel passion for their work. They are getting specialized at something that they love. You know, a long time ago, there were groups of people unemployed trying to know how to find a job. And, you know, counseling from this perspective takes a lot of time. And in the past, we used to say that people who were unemployed should flock together, get together and talk to each other. This is just as if we said, those who cannot flirt or have a boyfriend or girlfriend, let's get together. Passionating, right? And then you would say, well, yes, it's important because the therapy is good. Well, maybe yes. But when we are talking about unemployed people, the essential thing is to have role models, to go and try and identify opportunities. But why were we doing things like that? It is easier. We were all unemployed and we said, okay, let's meet together. We are 30, and I'm talking about this as if we were talking about the past. And, well, maybe it was easier like that. This girl, she, in the year 2006, she became an architect. 2006, it was a great year for architects, right? So she did her studies in Coruña, she came to Madrid, and she is a very hard worker. But she said, well, I cannot start working in 2007, 2008. She couldn't start working, and she decided to identify an alternative, something else to do, and then she decided to work on multi-platform apps, multi-platform applications. There are many architects for whom this girl is a model. What did she do? She went to VET. We don't need to think too much about it. Let's go to VET. So the important thing here is skills. You are an architect. It doesn't matter. You can come from the world of education or from the world of medicine. If you want to be a shepherd with drones, what are the skills you need? Imagine you are a shepherd and you have a drone. But it is true that maybe we need a drone with a loudspeaker able to do what I have just said. Let's imagine the shepherd guiding his sheep. And it is true that this is difficult. So let's try and imagine what are we talking about. The sheep of the future.
Bueno, yo sé que es apasionante el vídeo.
I know, it was a great video, wasn't it? But this is experimental at the moment. We don't have shepherd drones at the moment, but we should be all interested in it. I'm sick of people saying, I don't know what I like to do, and I'm trying to say to them, why don't you just start experimenting, try things out, work in what you have to work in, go to classes, go and see your guidance stuff, and in the meantime, start experimenting, just try things out. Look, I like to give you facts and figures. There are 110 operators in Spain and 4,000 companies in Europe in the world of drones. Oh, drone pilots, I don't know what you call. Maybe I'm interested in it. And not so long ago, Bidasol, which I think is a vocational training school you're going to be visiting this afternoon, organised an event on drone applications. If you're interested in trains, I'd be prepared to pay a fast train from Madrid or from Cordoba, from wherever I happen to be, or a plane from San Sebastian, from wherever I am, to try to attend this event. Why? Because I'm interested in it. I'd carry on with my boring job that I'm not interested in, but I'd have asked for a day off and come and listen to this event so as to learn and so as to try to get something out of something that I'm interested in. I'm not saying that I'm going to end up being a shepherd with a drone. So the idea is to not wait to know what you want to do, but take action to find out what you know what to do. That's one of the things that I miss, really, that I feel is lacking. And if I was a psychologist in vocational training, if I wanted to become a hairdresser tomorrow or a cake maker tomorrow, the public vocational training system offers 1 week or 2 week courses so that I can practice. Can I decide? Can I experiment? Can I try things out? Do vocational training systems offer me that, or do I have to sign up? People are sort of nodding their head when I give this. If we want people to take decisions and not suffer, we need to allow them to get back on board again if they get things wrong. What's the youngest intern in the network? It's this guy. He's 13. He's not only one of the youngest, he's one of the best. Do you know how he learnt how to program? By following YouTube videos. You know, we're all in classrooms. There'll come a time when we have to explain to people why they should go to class. Sometimes people already ask that. Why do we have to go to class? We spoke about methodologies with Pablo about lean startups, but I like this sentence that he uses, which is do something that works and then improve it afterwards, i.e. go to the drone event and then take action. Don't think so much. And when you have doubts, whenever we have doubts, just take the first little mini step. We've got to just do things in little mini steps.
Aquel que dijo más vale tener suerte que talento, conocía la esencia de la vida. La gente tiene miedo a reconocer que gran...
People are frightened of recognizing that vast of things of what we do in life depend on luck. When you're playing a match, sometimes the ball hits the edge of the net and just for a fraction of a second it can go one way or the other. If you're lucky, it'll go over the net and you'll win the point. Or not, and you'll lose. That's what life's all about. Life depends upon this little ball and on which side of the net it falls. The key is that if the ball actually falls on this side of the net and I lose the point, then I've got the possibility to go back and play tennis again, to get up off the floor. And if I don't get things right the first time, I can experiment, I can try something different. And this is difficult to find. Let's now talk about guidance for methodology, because as Jorge said, you learn from failure. But you need to look at figures. What you do learn from failure is that life is tough. That's one of the things you learn. Failure makes us tougher, and it makes us think that difficulties we can learn from. We learn because of little success stories and little failure stories. So what's the method? The method is to try and analyze. Let's see what happens here. Firstly, we know that there are a lot more people here talking about problems than talking about solutions. You know that. If you go to a school, they'll say to you, oh, look, we've got this problem, that problem. We careers guidance people don't know how to go about things. They always say to me, oh, we need to persevere, but hang on a minute, I can't find a solution. Science, when we talk about education, when we say that we're scientists, we're rhetorics. My grandfather would have been a good teacher. Would he be really a good teacher? We talk about positive psychology. I'd like you to investigate the importance of positive psychology and emotional intelligence. What is emotional intelligence? It's like a brand. Multiple intelligence. People talk about multiple intelligence, but they talk about coaching. Coaching is just a glamorous word for careers guidance. Resilience. What's resilience? Resilience sounds like some kind of a variable. Resilience, isn't that tenacity? Isn't that just hard work? Let's see what this studies say about this. And what about talent? People say that, oh, this guy's good, he's got talent. What does talent mean? Talent means having good skills. People are talented in one or two skills areas, but not necessarily talented in everything. When we say that somebody's talented, what we're saying is that somebody else doesn't have talent. That's the problem of labeling people. And that's the problem of resilience and all the other labels that we use to explain things. I'm not going to say to you that you've got talent. I say you're amazing. You're amazing at flying drones, at being a drone pilot. But I'm not going to say you're talented, because that's just not true. The only thing I say to people is that however much a clown makes an effort, a stone is never going to laugh. However good the clown is, the stone will never laugh. There comes a time in which you can say any kind of stupidity and you sound intelligent. A careers guidance person is very operational, but somebody who just spouts rhetoric is tiring. Because everybody seems to say, oh, coaching is out of fashion now. No, we mustn't use coaching anymore. We need to use entrepreneurship. That's just rhetoric. It's meaningless, empty words. What we need here are skills. We need to avoid pseudoscience, even in the world of education. We need to reinvent the world of education. Perfection can be found not by adding things, but removing things. This happens a lot when you go to couples therapy. When couples go and seek advice, they say, people to try to solve the problem that they have in the couple, they just add things. And they shouldn't be adding things. They should just be taking away what's superfluous, what's surplus to requirements. So coaching is just a glamorous word for careers guidance. That's what coaching is all about. Because careers guidance comes from the world of education, and coaching comes from the private world. And we all know that the private world's far better than the public world. We in education are like the ugly duckling. But you can't just improve things by changing the labels. What about multiple intelligence? Okay, aren't we talking about skills? Instead of talking about multiple intelligence, instead of talking about skills, I wouldn't be so famous. If you talk about a book and you write a book called Skills, then nobody's going to buy it. But if you talk about it and you call it multiple intelligent, then people will go out and buy it. Because your self-esteem improves, and it seems that it's a great field of research. The thing is, there's this pseudoscience out there. What happens? One thing is, we can say that 1 out of every 4 youngsters in Spain are NEETs. So we want to say that, but that happens to many people who actually have got a job. You can say, I've got a child, he's 20-year-old and he's in NEET. And I can turn around and say, yeah, like you don't do anything when you're at work either. So be careful with labeling people, because when you label a person, it sticks forever. There's no point in saying to somebody, you're a NEET. No, you can't label people. NEET is a description. It's not an explanation of what people are like. So, in summary, we'll see this tomorrow when we talk about educators, and we've got a session first thing tomorrow morning. A careers guidance person needs to be able to relate, which is far more than you can imagine, need to intervene, and they need to assess. Here we've got the 10 skills of people that look after other people. And the 10 skills that you need are planning. There are people that are telling others how to plan, they don't know how to plan themselves. Inform. You need to provide coaching, i.e. you need to ask questions. Coaching, it's just that coaching is a technique. Coaching, it's not a brand, it's a technique. You say, people say, I'm a coach, and then say, no, I'm tempted to say, no, you're not a coach. You use coaching. Coaching actually is a means of charging somebody for just asking the same questions that they ask. If you're a coach, somebody will come to you and say, what should I do with my life? And you'll answer them, oh, well, what do you think? And then you charge them 200 euros for that. All you're doing is trying to just use a brand name. You can say, okay, I'm a coach. Well, congratulations, but it's just a brand. I'm not interested in that. What's interesting is what you do as a coach. The next one, 4, is to advise. But remember, if you give a person a piece of advice or an instruction to somebody, and the person follows your advice but doesn't achieve what you want, then who's responsible? Everybody seems to be very quiet out there. Nobody seems to be answering. We're responsible. The people that give the advice are responsible. Let's talk about persuading. Darwin said that it was never a good idea to attack people who were religious, because people won't change their beliefs through reasoning. And we don't change our beliefs through reasoning. We change our beliefs because of things that happen to us, because of the consequences of our lives, because of things that happen to us. So it's all very complicated. When I say to somebody, I want you all to be entrepreneurs because it's positive, it's great. And when you finish the class, it's very difficult. You need to persuade people and you need to encourage people. Encouraging is another difficult thing because encouraging involves increasing positive emotions. I've got a bad love life, I don't have a partner, I'm a NEET, and your job as a coach is to say, yeah, go for it. I mean, that's terrible. If this was a workshop, I'd like us all to be like you to be aware of when we carry out role play, how often we say to people, go for it. Yeah, go for it. What do you mean, fucking go for it? The English we speak in Cordoba is a bit like the English they speak in Northern Ireland. So, to encourage people, I'd rather actually just accept, if your life is tough, I can't encourage you. I can't just say to you, go for it. I can understand you, I can receive you, I can try to help you. But I can't just say, go for it. Sometimes I need to say to you, look, you've got to accept things. We need to do things, but we're going to have to accept. But it's very tough because sometimes we're trying to encourage people, but that's actually not our job. Our job is not to generate false expectations. How can I say to somebody that their life is going to improve if I don't have that certainty? And what about training? If you train, you acquire skills. I've stopped using the word training recently because training or education is okay, but you need to practice. You need to practice and train. You can do all sorts of things without attending a course to facilitate. When you say to people, I'll give you the rod, you fish. I always say to Cordoba, great, here, have the fishing rod. Now, go to the Guadalquivir River and see if you can fish something. I always say to people, before telling somebody what they have to do, have you checked whether that works? Here's a list of 1,000 hotels to call. Have you ever called those hotels? Do you know what it's like having the door shut in your face? And then to assess. And this is due to data. And previously, I was speaking to the person in charge of education in Andalusia. I said that actually we need to work as a team. When we need to guide people, we're not just guiding a person, we're guiding a whole team of people. We don't just need to say things. We don't just need to give advice. What careers guidance people do, they connect the community and they try to help people find alternatives. What did Bill Gates used to say? Or what does he still say? Bill Gates says that we should record ourselves. Teachers should record what they do. Just because you can teach, it doesn't mean to say you shouldn't record yourself to try and assess your work. And the problem is that 36% of teachers have actually never been assessed professionally. It's a figure. How, when we get information, we don't assess what's going on, if we don't appraise what's going on, if we don't evaluate what's going on. The second problem is that when we do evaluate or assess things, then nothing happens, because there's no point just evaluating or assessing and then doing nothing. That's worse than actually no evaluation. It's all very well giving advice, but hey, what if we don't assess and then take that advice? I like Chiquito data. This is a humorist in Spain. I like everyday data. I like seeing what's happening. As we say, okay, we need to decide with data, with facts in our hands, not with opinions. You need data, but data is just the starting point. Big data, for example, just the starting point. We're going to get more and more data. How many goals does Ronaldo have to score? Is he the best scorer in the league? No, it's actually one of the worst. So why do they allow him to take penalties? He's one of the worst. You need to analyze results in preference to just being prejudiced and just being impressed by what people say. Let's just forget different laws. Let's concentrate on results. When people ask me, they always say, "Oh, yes, use Germany as an example." And I always say, I've got a friend in the Basque Country. Why are you always talking about going to Germany? Why don't you go to the Basque Country? I use a lot of swear words, but this is very important. Analyze results, and if you're going to take a decision, base your decision on a piece of data or on a fact. Don't just take a decision because you feel like it. Give a reason for your decision. Base it on something. What does Jorge Arevalo have that Brad Pitt doesn't have? And there he is. Christina, Jorge's boss, wasn't here last time. What's Jorge Arevalo got that Brad Pitt doesn't have? I mean, Jorge Arevalo is very attractive, as is Brad Pitt. Jorge Arevalo got some great facts and figures, but Brad Pitt doesn't. Brad Pitt doesn't have any good figures. If you look at that, you can say, I need to go to the Basque Country to learn. If you see those figures, in fact, many of you have come here, and everybody loves Jorge. Everybody's following Jorge on Twitter because he's so passionate about what he does. I'm not just trying to say nice words about him. But what I'm saying is, let's search for models. And Jorge's always looking at figures. I know they're macro figures. And in short, when we talk about assessment, when we talk about methodology and evaluation, what's important is whether we're filling or emptying the glass. If you know that the situation is bad in many places, but is it better than yesterday? Are we improving? Is it better than yesterday? I'm not worried about the state of things. I'm worried about how things are going. And I'm going to finish soon, don't worry. Careers guidance. Reinventing reinventors. As Oscar Wilde said, if you're going to tell the truth, do it in fun, otherwise you're going to get killed. I'm trying to do that. I've spent 20 years guiding people, and I say this from the heart. The thing is that people like Jorge, they're not very thick on the ground. In fact, they're very thin on the ground. We say that the future is in the hands of youngsters, but no, that's not true. The future's in the hands of those people who teach youngsters. Because we're behind those youngsters. Let's now just look that Paquito was the first person to wear a proper bullfighter's suit, He invented this bullfighter's suit. That's the only innovation that we've had in Cordoba. And so Paquito invented this bullfighter's suit. He was in this third-rate bull ring, and he said, you know what? What are you doing here? You're risking your lives. There's not very many people watching. And he said, well, many of the people that are here that are watching will probably know a lot about bullfighting. Well, in that case, I'm fighting for this guy that knows about bullfighting. So do things properly, whoever's looking at you. It doesn't matter who's looking at you. You might be working as a team, but just do it properly, whether people are watching you or not. When people say, I don't have time, this is something that many people say, I don't have any time because I'm marking exams. And the thing is, if we spend a lot of time marking papers and wasting time on administrative tasks, then I'm not innovating. That's why many people who are angry, they say, oh, why don't you separate from your husband or your wife? Because they simply don't have time, because they're not prepared to look for an alternative. If I had 5 minutes as a teacher, as an educator, as a careers guidance person, what would I do? And you'll see what happens. If you have 5 minutes, what would you do? Many people discover that they actually don't know what they do if they just had 5 minutes time. So it's not a problem of time, it's a problem of objectives, of aims in life. I say that when you've got a lot of things stacked up on your desk, forget everything. Just take up one thing, put the others away. That's what produces productivity. And we need to do that with strategic thinking. When you ask that of managers, then you've got to think about strategy. So the question is, what should I be doing now? What should I really be doing now? People don't like that question. It's an awful question to answer. Saturday evening, you're out with your... or you're watching the television with your partner, and you ask your partner, Manolo, what should we be doing now? And the reply to that question is going to either save your marriage or break it. But you need to take a decision. And another thing is value. How much would you pay for the services that you provide? As a professional in the public sector, am I good at my job? Am I very good at my job? I can ask that yourself. You can ask that yourself. Am I good at what I do? We're talking about efficiency. Would you pay for the services that you offer? When somebody asks you for guidance, do they prefer to come to you or do they prefer to go to a colleague? In Japan, they say that the only people that don't bow to the emperor are educators, because without educators, there are no emperors. That's what they say. I'm an educator, woo, I work with people. That's a typical rhetoric. Oh, consultancies, they do the same thing. Consultants, they work with people. Well, you can only work with people. You can't really work with robots because they don't speak. But the thing is that this is completely false. This isn't true. Because you don't have to bow to anybody. But we have this sort of rhetoric that we're educators, that we're important for young people. We need to try to showcase what we do so that the guidance becomes something important in education, and not that just the poor man of education, the poor nice guy of education. And you can tell that when you talk about personal relations. You need to remember to have things in your head, but you need to showcase what you do. When we talk about another skills of careers guidance people is communication. Let's have a look at this guy here. This is a guy who provides advice to immigrants. Now, let's look at what he does now. He provides advice to immigrants. Just have a look at him.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Mi nombre es Vicente Marín, soy abogado.
I'm a lawyer, I'm an expert in immigration law, and as you know, I'm in charge of the parainmigrantes.info portal. Let's talk today about a very good piece of news for Peruvians, and other people are here. Here, he's telling you things. He's got 200,000 fans. All he does is just provide advice to immigrants. He's got 200,000 fans, and he's got a payphone number, and he's really, really successful. What's he done? He's put content, his advice, he's just put it on an online portal, and it's now something attractive. It's a free video, which is inviting you to follow what he's advising you to do. I like Marca Empleo. Marca Empleo is a blog that you've probably all heard about. It's just one person here behind this blog. And what he does is he summarizes content. It's huge. I don't know when he works. I think he's a teacher. And he's got a blog called Marca Empleo, which is better than any other information portal or employment portal that the administration has. So in short, if you don't have a blog, you're like a homeless person, a digital homeless person. You just hang around in social networks all the time. You need some kind of professional page. So you need scientific skills, for example, because an educator is also a researcher. Here's a study that relates self-control. Well, it doesn't relate. It looks at the cause effect. The greater level of self-control that you have as a child, less chance of you being unemployed in the long term. So we need to be professionals that have self-control. But first of all, we need to know what self-control is, we need to define it, and we need to measure it. People say to me, Alfonso, you're an expert in technology. No, that's not right. No, I'm just a psychologist. I offer careers guidance and I use 2.0 technologies. Richard Feynman, the physics Nobel Prize winner in 1965, worked on what was called the Manhattan Project that built the atomic bomb. There were several sub-projects. They were all very secret, and each worker in each sub-project didn't know the workers that were on the other sub-project because they were all secret. So that this physicist, who's very intelligent, said, can we share information that's not classified information? So with all these sub-projects, what they did was they shared information. And can you imagine how much productivity increased? It multiplied by 10 just by sharing information. That increases productivity by 10. I'm not talking about teamwork. I'm just talking about sharing information. But working together doesn't necessarily mean collaborating. That's why there are very efficient vocational training colleges and others that aren't so efficient, and working groups. What is clear is that connected students need connected professionals. When I see that there's people that still aren't on Twitter or aren't on Facebook, you need to remember that your students are. And in fact, we used to use Facebook. Now we use WhatsApp because it's faster. And finally, I'm going to ask you to think of the following question. What are you good at? What are you going to be good at? It's like when you ask somebody what they are and they say, oh, I'm a civil servant. And you don't ask the person what they know how to do. So you need to ask yourselves what you know how to do. I was tweeting recently and I like Jose Alfredo Fuentes. I don't know if he's here. Is he here? No. Well, that's him. I'm going to talk about him, so, relax. I'm going to say some positive words about him. He's from Canastel, a vocational training center in Alicante. And his Twitter site is called Thermal Fluid. It's great, isn't it? Can you imagine? Fluidos térmicos, thermal fluids. That's what his brand is called. And he can say anything. So the question is, what's your 9? When you got back from school, your mother used to ask you, have you passed everything? And you said, yeah. She never asked you, what are you good at? Your mum never asked you what you're good at. I bet she never did. And we still don't ask ourselves what we're good at. We're just teachers or civil servants or advisors. They're just labels. But what are we good at? What's your number 9? So, if you want to be multi-talented, you can fly. But if you want to specialize, you need to be able to land. If you don't like teaching, take a break. Take a 30-year break. If you don't like teaching, go. Leave it. Because it's unacceptable. I'm not trying to put myself in somebody else's shoes. I know it's difficult, especially if you're a civil servant and you've got tenure. It's very difficult to get out of that. But it's better to be fun about them. What's this guy good at? What do you think this guy's good at? The only piece... Sometimes it's very difficult to be motivated. If you want to be motivated, the best way to be motivated is to be recognized as something very good at something, or a tool, or a subject. It doesn't matter what you do. Just be good at something. That's why Jorge is a benchmark. Because he's a vocational training deputy minister, but is focused on what he's doing. This is Manolo. Let's look at what he does.
¿Cómo lo voy a mirar? Como si fuera familia mía ya. Porque vamos a tomar un café, vamos a otro sitio.
Gracias a personas como Manolo.
Thanks to Manolo, 13,000 European people have been down to the Canary Islands, and what he does is what he works putting out sun loungers.
Bioterapeuta Manolo, ¿y nosotros qué? No salga de tu zona de confort.
So don't leave your comfort zone. Make it bigger. Make it bigger. Try to find a new path. Try and find a small goal that you can reach. And when you ask yourselves, what am I going to do now? Well, you're going to go out and buy my book, first of all. Thank you very much. We'll see you back here tomorrow.